Good evening, friends. I'm Nelson J., and I'm here on behalf of the Northwest Justice Project's online Jubilee for Justice. This is our Take Two version. Great to be back with you. Originally scheduled for November 19th, and we are so excited that we can now bring you our complete program. We're going to start tonight with a Seattle area singer, songwriter, and a great friend of the Northwest Justice Project. Please welcome Sheryl Wiser.
Hey everyone, my name is Sheryl Wiser, and I am so happy to be here in support of the Northwest Justice Project. And I want to thank you all for being here today too. And it was my joy and my honor to help raise money for them this summer through my house concert series, Pie and Persistence. And this is one of the songs that I did. It's an original of mine called Letter. And I wanted to play it for you today because, you know, when we think about how we're in relationship with one another as people, as community, as different organizations, as systems, sometimes it's so hard to be able to figure out the ways that we can talk and how we connect, and the power of words. And I think that's what the song is about, and the ways that we're afraid to show up, and in the end, how we find our voice. So this is called Letter. I've been writing a letter to you. I've been writing a letter to you about all the ways that we are through. I've been writing a letter to you. I don't know where to send. I don't know where to send. I don't know where to send to tell you about the end. I've been writing a letter to you. My love for you is like the moon. My love for you, so big and so blue. I don't have what it takes. I don't have what it takes. I don't have what it takes to tell the truth to your face. I've been writing a letter to you. My love for you is like the moon. My love for you, so big and so blue. keep saying you got something for me, something you call love, but confess you've been messing where you shouldn't be messing. Someone else is getting all your best. 'Cause these boots were made for walking. That's just what they'll do. One of these days, these boots are gonna walk all over you. You keep lying when you ought to be truthing. You keep thinking that you ought to lie back. You keep saying that when you ought to be changing. Know what's right is right. You ain't been right yet. 'Cause these boots were made for walking. That's just what they'll do. One of these days, these boots are gonna walk all over you. You keep playing where you shouldn't be playing. You keep thinking that you will never get burned. I just found me a brand new box of matches. What he's got, time learning. 'Cause these boots were made for walking. That's just what they'll do. One of these days, these boots are gonna walk over you.
Well, friends, welcome officially to the 2020 online virtual Jubilee for Justice, a benefit for the Northwest Justice Project. I'm Nelson J. I'll be your host and fundraising ambassador tonight, and thanks to each and every one of you for joining us. Before we get started tonight, I would like to read a land acknowledgement. I want to acknowledge that many of us in the Puget Sound region live and work in the ancestral lands of the Coast Salish peoples, particularly the unceded lands of the Duwamish people who continue to live in and honor this land. Each of you, too, stand on ancestral lands, and it is important that every time we gather, we reflect on the history of the First Peoples, their long stewardship of the lands on which we depend, the tragic history of colonialism and expropriation, and its ongoing effects. Please take a moment to click the link in the chat, and that link is https://native-land.ca to enter your zip code and learn on whose traditional lands you occupy. This acknowledgement does not substitute for the need to build authentic relationships with modern-day members of these tribes and to learn about their living culture and history. Well, thanks to each and every one of you for joining us to learn about the important work that Northwest Justice Project is undertaking. And speaking of thanks, we want to give a big shout out to our sponsors, and that includes Amazon, MetaJure, WSGR Foundation, Langfeldt Law, Sheryl Wiser, musician, Stephanie Land, author, and Gavelo Auctions. And now I would like to introduce our first presenter, and that is César Torres. César is the executive director of the Northwest Justice Project. He has dedicated his entire career to the causes of equal justice. For more than 20 years, and before coming to Washington, he specialized in federal housing programs and affordable housing preservation. Since taking over as the Northwest Justice Project Director in 2006, the program has nearly doubled in size, providing impactful, high-quality representation from 21 offices around the state. César is recognized for his passion and leadership across the legal services community, both locally and nationally. Please welcome César Torres.
Thank you all so much for joining us to support the Northwest Justice Project's life-changing work, providing civil legal aid services for people in poverty. Your presence during these difficult times and your commitment to justice is inspiring. I also want to thank Stephanie Land for joining us to generously share some of her personal experiences dealing with the impact of poverty and its injustice in her life. Prior to the pandemic, we knew the great majority of the 2 million people living in or near poverty in Washington face multiple serious civil legal problems every year. Legal problems that directly affect their access to healthcare, their economic security, their housing, the safety and well-being of their children. We also knew that the great majority of those who sought legal assistance to deal with these problems did not receive any help. There's no right to an attorney, even when someone is facing critical civil legal problems such as these, and NJP and community resources are limited. Today, our state and country are being ravaged by the pandemic as never before. Today, we know the pandemic disproportionately strikes hardworking low-income families who are deemed essential, some would say expendable, to make it possible for many of us to work from the safety of our homes. We also know that the rates of infection among Black, Native American, and Latino communities is 4 times the rate of the white community, reflecting the many deep-seated structural systems in our communities that again and again disadvantage and harm Black, Indigenous, and other communities of color, today with fatal consequences. Already, poverty has greatly increased across the state, and more people than ever have been desperately seeking help and looking for answers, facing the prospects of a tsunami of evictions. The Northwest Justice Project is spearheading the response to these challenges across the state. The extreme injustices brought to light by the pandemic will continue as high levels of poverty, unemployment, and economic uncertainty are projected to linger for years. This means that in the coming years, many more people than ever before will be seeking legal help, and that the work of the Northwest Justice Project too will be more essential than ever before. Facing these realities today, we know that now more than ever we need your support to make sure we can fulfill our core mission of combating injustice and protecting human dignity, and in that way, make real our national promise of equal justice for all. It takes a community like this working together to truly make a difference. Thank you for your compassion and generosity in support of our work.
Thank you, César. As a reminder, friends, at the core of the Northwest Justice Project's mission is combating injustice and protecting human dignity and delivering on its national promise of equal justice for all. As a reminder, the impoverished are disproportionately harmed by COVID-19, and unfathomable numbers of people continue spiraling into poverty. More people than ever before unexpectedly find themselves just one crisis away from catastrophe. And the right to an attorney does not extend to civil legal cases such as eviction, domestic violence, and workplace violations. For people in poverty, getting a private attorney may be impossible. Northwest Justice Project provides free legal education, advice, and representation. Your support right now, right here, will provide a legal lifeline to justice, safety, and stability. So thank you so much for what you've done and what you're about to do for those most vulnerable. Well, our next presenter is an inspiring speaker and a writer, and I'm so excited. You will be so moved by what Stephanie has to share. Stephanie Land's MAID is a deeply personal story and an essential social commentary about how we treat domestic laborers. Her memoir sheds light on the lives of working poor and the stigma society has against those pursuing the American dream from below the poverty line. From the moment Stephanie moves into a homeless shelter with her infant daughter, she illustrates the trauma of grasping for stability from a rigged system and demonstrates just how hard work doesn't always pay off. In a constant state of scarcity, a single unexpected cost can derail dreams of escaping poverty. Northwest Justice Project was a community resource that helped Stephanie along her journey. We are so grateful that she has donated her time to be with us this evening. I'm so pleased to welcome Stephanie Land.
Hi there, I am Stephanie Land, and thank you so much for including me in your fundraiser and Jubilee for this year. I was incredibly honored actually to have the Northwest Justice Project reach out to me. I leaned on them heavily. It was 2008, in the spring of 2008, and I found myself in a situation where I had kind of been thrown out of my home, and I was staying with my parents in Snohomish in Everett, well, Arlington, but near Everett, Washington. And I called the hotline, and I had already filed for a order of protection or temporary something or other, and everything was so intimidating and confusing, and it just felt like there were stacks of forms that I had to fill out. And to have the support of a lawyer was amazing, and it wasn't just the one time. Our custody battle went on for a couple of years, and Northwest Justice Project followed me through the whole thing, even through moving back to Jefferson County and having to finish out my case there. I think I had 3 lawyers in all who helped me throughout the whole process, and it was a little life-changing for me in a way that I suddenly switched my focus in college from just getting a 2-year transfer degree. I was going to school online, and I switched to wanting to be a paralegal. And because I felt like I was so good at filling out all of this paperwork and had like spent so much time doing it, and felt like it was so daunting that I wanted to help other people do the same thing. And so I kind of got it in my head that I could be like a freelance paralegal and just like float around and just help people fill out paperwork. And it turned out that was not possible, or that was not something that you could actually do. And then when I finally moved to Missoula, Montana, I enrolled at the University of Montana. And I initially transferred here and enrolled in the sociology program to get a sociology degree, because they have a law school here that is very beautiful and pretty well renowned, I guess. And it was just my goal to work for a domestic violence center as a lawyer or a legal assistant who would be able to go to court with women and just and victims and families and just offer them support. And I wanted to do that so badly. But when I got here, I found out that that was not necessarily what I wanted to do. I have always wanted to be a writer, and every day that I was on campus, I felt like I was cheating myself a little bit out of that very specific and long-term dream. And one night I had just gotten off of work. I cleaned this huge office building, and it took me 2 or 3 hours. And I usually got off work at 2 or 3 in the morning. And my roommate was there and would stay with Mia so that I could work in the middle of the night. And I picked up a magazine in the waiting room of this real estate office, and they wanted essays or little blurbs, and I sent them one. And I had written it at like when I got home from work, and they published it. And they published it in print in this local magazine. And it was the first time that I had ever had anything published. And it was the first time that I had really ever seen my name in print. And from that point, since the topic was also about escaping domestic violence and just kind of my journey as a single mom at the time, I became convinced. I thought I could reach more people with my writing, just from that one little blurb that is published in Missoula, Montana, where I'm sure their circulation is 5,000 people, or that's maybe optimistic. And so I became friends with the publisher, the owner of that magazine, and I always thank her because she saved me from law school. Because after that, I actually switched my degree to get a degree in English. And I was going to go on to the creative writing program, but actually I got rejected and made it anyway. So I understand the want, and I can empathize with the need to help people, even though you are looking at a lifetime of debt from law school. I guess I found a different way to go into debt. and I mean, amazingly, I made it as a writer, but for a long time, I didn't think that that was going to happen. I just wanted to reach as many people as I could. And I am a product of the work that you do. And I don't think I would have made it through those years without having someone there to accompany me to court and just sit with me in an office and talk me through paperwork and tell me that the other party's claims were ridiculous and just be on my side. And I am always indebted to that. And thank you for all of the work that you are doing.
Well, thank you so much, Stephanie. And friends, Stephanie will be back after our fundraising portion of the evening to do a reading from her book, MAID. So stick around for that. So thank you so much for what you've done, for what you're about to do, and for all of you that joined us on November 19th, thank you for your incredible generosity. Through a titanic tech challenge, you persevered and you helped us actually reach our initial fundraising goal back on November 19th. And we are blown away by your support, and we are asking you to consider spreading the word, telling friends, and let's grow this so we can reach our stretch goal of $100,000. Thank you so much. Well, now I would like to move into the formal fundraising portion of the evening, and great news again, through our incredible generous sponsors, our champion sponsors, Amazon and MetaJure, we have already reached over $86,000 in fundraising. And for those of you that didn't have a chance to give when we first gathered on November 19th, or haven't yet made your gift, or perhaps you're motivated to give again, this is the time to do that. So I'm going to go through the ways to give, and it's very easy. You can visit nwjustice.org/donate. You can also mail checks directly to Northwest Justice Project, 401 2nd Avenue, Suite 407, Seattle, Washington, 98104. And those ways to give, of course, are on your screen. So we are going to talk a little bit about what your support does, and that support includes things like fully covering 1 hour of legal advice or representation for a client, and that's at the $125 level. At the $250 level, it fully covers one client's eviction or workplace discrimination case. $500 translates into 5 languages, a 2-page legal resource for our clients. And at the $1,000 level, you'll fully cover one client's creditor harassment or collection practices case. The $2,500 level covers fully the housing discrimination cases for 2 clients or 10 eviction cases. And at times like this, now more than ever, we really need your support. And at the $5,000 level, that fully covers 8 domestic abuse cases. And we know one thing for sure during this incredibly challenging COVID period, that housing discrimination, unfair evictions, domestic abuse, it's all on the rise now more than ever before. So thank you for helping us overcome those challenges for people that are most vulnerable and most need your help. Well, we're also going to hear from some folks that are incredible supporters and donors to the Northwest Justice Project. Here are a few words on why they have chosen to donate.
Hi, I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Dany, Keirouz.
And we're actually about to go for a hike, but we thought we'd take a moment to tell you about why we donate to the Northwest Justice Project. We support the Northwest Justice Project because our courts make it really difficult for people who can't afford an attorney to seek justice. The right to an attorney does not extend to civil legal cases. This situation puts low-income people at a disadvantage and makes them vulnerable to exploitation.
Northwest Justice Project provides free legal education, advice, and representation that levels the field for low-income people seeking justice. NJP's frontline legal services help prevent evictions, secure essential government benefits for veterans, people with disabilities, and seniors, to help them protect workers from wage theft and COVID-19 exposure.
Impoverished community members are disproportionately harmed by consequences of COVID-19, and more people than ever are one crisis away from spiraling deeper into poverty. This year, we doubled our donation to Northwest Justice Project because no one should have to face a potentially devastating legal situation on their own. We know that NJP will use our donation to provide a legal lifeline to justice, safety, and stability for those who need it most.
Please join us in stretching your support for the critical service that NJP provides our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it. If you needed any encouragement or other reasons to give, there's a couple of them. Thank you for your support, and thank you so much for spending your time with us in this important fundraising initiative. All right, well, friends, I'm so excited that welcome back to your video screens the most amazing and inspirational writer and the author of MAID. Please welcome Stephanie Land, reading an excerpt from her book.
Hi there. I thought I would read the first few pages of my book. And this was very much a scene that I hold pretty dear to me. And there is a mention of court documents in it, which were all a part of my walk with the Northwest Justice Project for a few months. So, all right. Oh, I guess I should hold this up. It's from my book, MAID. And forgive me, this is my book tour copy, so it's a little weathered. My daughter learned to walk in a homeless shelter. It was an afternoon in June, the day before her first birthday. I perched on the shelter's threadbare love seat, holding up an old digital camera to capture her first steps. Mia's tangled hair and thinly striped onesie contrasted with the look of determination in her brown eyes as she flexed and curled her toes for balance. From behind the camera, I took in the folds of her ankles, the rolls of her thighs, and the roundness of her belly. She babbled as she made her way toward me, barefoot across the tiled floor. Years of dirt were etched into that floor. As hard as I scrubbed, I could never get it clean. It was the final week of our 90-day stay in a cabin unit on the north side of Port Townsend, Washington, allotted by the Housing Authority for those without a home. Next, we'd move into transitional housing, an old rundown apartment complex with cement floors that doubled as a halfway house. However temporary, I had done my best to make the cabin a home for my daughter. I'd placed a yellow sheet over the love seat, not only to warm the looming white walls and gray floors, but to offer something bright and cheerful during a dark time. By the front door, I'd hung a small calendar on the wall. It was filled with appointments with caseworkers at organizations where I could get us some help. I had looked under every stone, peered through the window of every government assistance building, and joined the long lines of people who carried haphazard folders of paperwork to prove they didn't have money. I was overwhelmed by how much work it took to prove that I was poor. We weren't allowed to have visitors or to have very much at all. We had one bag of belongings. Mia had a single basket of toys. I had a small stack of books that I'd placed on the little shelves separating the living area from the kitchen. There was a round table that I clipped Mia's high chair to, and a chair where I sat and watched her eat, often drinking coffee to quell my own hunger. As I watched Mia take those first few steps, I tried to keep my eyes from the green box behind her where I kept the court documents detailing my fight with her father for custody. I fought to keep my focus on her, smiling at her as if everything was fine. Had I turned the camera around, I wouldn't have recognized myself. The few photos of me showed almost a different person, possibly the skinniest I had been in my whole life. I worked part-time as a landscaper, where I spent several hours a week trimming shrubs, fighting back overgrown blackberries, and picking tiny blades of grass from places they weren't supposed to be. Sometimes I cleaned the floors and toilets of homes whose owners I knew, friends who had heard that I was desperate for money. They weren't rich, but these friends had financial cushions beneath them, something I didn't. A lost paycheck would be a hardship, not a start of events that would end with living in a homeless shelter. They had parents or possible family members who could swoop in with money and save them from all of that. No one was swooping in for us. It was just Mia and me. On the intake papers for the Housing Authority, when asked about my personal goals for the next few months, I wrote about trying to make it work with Mia's dad, Jamie. I thought if I tried hard enough, we could figure it out. Sometimes I would imagine moments where we were a real family, a mother, a father, a beautiful baby girl. I'd grasp onto those daydreams like they were a string tied to a huge balloon. The balloon would carry me over Jamie's abuse and the hardship of being left as a single parent. If I kept a hold of that string, I'd float above it all. If I focused on the portrait of the family I wanted to be, I could pretend the bad parts weren't real, like this life was a temporary state of being, not a new existence. Mia got new shoes for her birthday. I'd saved up for them for a month. They were brown with little pink and blue birds embroidered on them. I sent out party invitations like a normal mom and invited Jamie like we were a normal co-parenting couple. We celebrated at a picnic table overlooking the ocean on the grassy hillside at Chetzemoka Park in Port Townsend, the city in Washington state where we lived. People sat smiling on blankets they'd brought. I'd bought lemonade and muffins with my remaining food stamp money for that month. My dad and my grandfather had traveled for almost 2 hours from opposite directions to attend. My brother and a few friends came. One brought a guitar. I asked a friend to take pictures of Mia, Jamie, and me because it was so rare, the three of us sitting together like that. I wanted Mia to have a good memory to look back on. But Jamie's face in the photos showed disinterest and anger. My mom had flown in with her husband, William, all the way from London or France or wherever they were living at the time. The day after Mia's party, they came over, violating the homeless shelter's no visitors rule, to help me move to the transitional apartment. I shook my head a little at their outfits. William in his skinny black jeans, black sweater, and black boots. Mom in a black and white striped dress that hugged her hips, and black leggings and low-top Converse shoes. They looked ready for sipping espresso, not moving. I hadn't let anyone see where we'd been living. So the intrusion of their British accents and Euro outfits made the cabin, our home, feel even dirtier. William seemed surprised to see that there was only one duffel bag to move us out. He picked it up to bring it outside, and Mom followed him. I turned back to take a final look at that floor, at the ghosts of myself reading books on the love seat, of Mia rummaging through her basket of toys, of her sitting in the built-in drawer under the twin bed. I was happy to be gone, but it was a brief moment to take in what I had survived, a bittersweet goodbye to the fragile place of our beginning. Half the residents in our new apartment building, the Northwest Passage traditional family housing program, were like me, moving out of homeless shelters, but the other half were people who had just gotten out of jail. It was supposed to be a step up from the shelter, but I had already missed the seclusion of the cabin. Here in this building, my reality felt exposed for all to see, even for me. Mom and William waited behind me as they approached the door to our new home. I struggled with the key, sitting the box down to fumble harder with the lock, until finally we were in. Well, at least that's secure, William joked. We walked into the narrow entryway, the front door opposite the bathroom. Right away, I noticed the tub where Mia and I could take a bath together. We hadn't had the luxury of a tub in a long time. Our 2 bedrooms were on the right. Each had a window that faced the road. In the tiny kitchen, the refrigerator door grazed the cupboards on the opposite side. I walked across the large white tiles, which resembled the floor at the shelter, and opened the door to a small outdoor deck. It was just wide enough where I could sit with my legs stretched out. Julie, my caseworker, had briefly shown me the place in a walkthrough 2 months earlier. The last family who lived in the apartment had stayed for 24 months, the maximum amount of time possible. You're lucky this one opened up, she said, especially since your days were up at the shelter. When I first met Julie, I sat across from her, stammering in my attempts to answer questions about what my plans were, how I planned to provide shelter for my child, what my path to financial stability looked like, what jobs I could do. Julie seemed to understand my bewilderment, offering some suggestions on how to proceed. Moving into low-income housing seemed to be my only option. The trouble was finding an empty slot. There were advocates at the Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Services Center who kept a protected shelter available for victims who had nowhere to turn, but I had gotten lucky when the Housing Authority offered me my own space and a path to stability. Julie and I went over a 4-page list of terse rules during that first meeting, rules I'd have to agree to in order to stay at the shelter. Guest understands that this is an emergency shelter. This is not your home. Random urinalysis may be requested at any time. Visitors are not allowed at the shelter, no exceptions. Julie made clear that they'd still do random checks to make sure the daily household chore minimums were met, like cleaning the dishes, not leaving food on the counter, and keeping the floor tidy. I again agreed to random urinalysis tests, random unit inspections, and a 10 p.m. curfew. Overnight visitors were not allowed without permission, and for no more than 3 days. All changes in income had to be reported immediately. Monthly statements had to be submitted with details about what money came in and how and why it went out. Julie was always nice and kept smiling as she spoke. I appreciated that she didn't have that worn, drawn-out look that other caseworkers in government offices seem to have. She treated me like a person, tucking her short copper-red hair behind her ear as she spoke. But my thoughts were stuck on when she called me lucky. I didn't feel lucky. Grateful, yes, definitely, but having luck, no. Not when I was moving into a place with rules that suggested that I was maybe an addict, dirty, or just so messed up in life that I needed an enforced curfew and pee tests. Being poor, living in poverty, seemed a lot like probation. The crime being a lack of means to survive. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Well, thank you so much, Stephanie. Thank you for reading. Thank you for your testimonial tonight. And thanks to each and every one of you for spending your time with us. Thanks for supporting Northwest Justice Project.
How goes this life? How goes that life? Who knows if this life is the right life for my life? Some days I sit on top of the world, just another little oyster with all her pretty little pearls. Some days I sit on a ladder on a well. Which way I'm going, it's hard to tell, but I will be flying high, just like a bird in the sky. Watch me fly, fly, fly. Oh, I'm gonna be a bird in the sky. Once upon a reason, yeah, once upon a rhyme. I once loved you, let me tell you, that was a crime. I ran to you like a river to sea. And every door threw away the key, but I will be flying high, just like a bird in the sky. Watch me fly. Oh, I'm gonna be a bird in the sky. Late at night, I watch the Ferris wheel turn. The third floor landing, red and green lights, how they burn. I whisper to the moon, yeah, I whisper to the stars. Wherever you go, that's where you are, but I will be flying high, just like a bird in the sky. Watch me fly. I'm gonna be a bird